Alright guys, quick shout out to Tanner, Cameron, Jaime, and Dan S. Today we're going to do cosine graphs. So this is actually kind of quick because you guys should have watched sine graphs yesterday, and it's basically the exact same process. The only difference is what the graph looks like. If you're looking at a cosine graph is basically a sine graph that's shifted over. So if I'm looking at a cosine graph, the first thing I'm noticing is that these are wrong. You guys should change these on your note sheet. This should be pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And same thing with over here. Okay? Because every 90 degrees is when it changes. So the difference between sine and cosine curves, if you look, sine always started at the middle line that we talked about at 0, at when the theta was 0. Cosine, though, either starts at positive 1 or negative 1. Or if you have, a different crest or trough, it'd be either at the top or the bottom, depending on if it's a positive cosine or a negative cosine. And that's pretty much it. You still do the whole process. The values are still the same. You still need the 5 sections, so the first point, the last point, and the 3 middle points that you have to find the graph. So let's try a couple. So y equals 6 cosine of 8 theta plus 96 plus 3. Hopefully you guys remember that we have to factor this out. So let's do that first. And that's the thing I'm going to put, that's the guts of my problem. Remember, every cosine and sine graph start out by going from 0 to 360. 8 is my frequency. So to find the period, I just divide by 8. And when I divide by 8, I get 45. So the period is 45 degrees. That means the one cycle will happen over 45 degrees. Now that doesn't mean it starts at 0 to 45. There is a phase shift. We have to move this 12 over. When you subtract everything by 12, you get theta goes between negative 12 and 33. Okay, and let's do some other things. My node line, or my center line, is at y is equal to 3. So it's shifted up 3. So now imagine you're at 3, the amplitude is 6, which means that the highest point, the crest, and the lowest point, the trough, are at 3 plus 6, which is 9, and 3 minus 6, which is negative 3. So I'm going to graph this now. Okay, and I'm going to just kind of estimate where these things are. I'll say that this is about negative 10, negative 12 is here. 10, 20, 30 is about there. So I'll say that's 33. And then we have to find the middle points. This is where, again, you have to do the average between the two. Oh, let's do the center lines too. This is 9. So I'll say that this is 3. And I'll say this is negative 3. Okay. So the only thing we need to do now is find these middle points between the starting and ending point of our angles, which are negative 12 degrees and 33 degrees. If you do negative 12 plus 33, and then divide it by 2, so you'll get 21 divided by 2, which is 10.5, and that should be directly in between the two. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Right here. Now you want to find directly in between these two, so you'll add 33 and 10.5. Again, you're just averaging two numbers together. 33 plus 10.5 divided by 2, and you get 21.75. And over here, you get 10.5 plus negative 12, and you'll actually end up with negative 0.75, so that's like right about here. Okay, and now we can draw the box. The middle line is here, and we're only going up to the 33 into the 12. I know yesterday I made it so it was perfect size, but I just kind of drew the line bigger this time. The top goes to 33, the bottom goes to 12 and 33. Now, the only difference in graphing a cosine curve is where you start. Our graph is positive cosine, so cosine is either at the top or the bottom. Since it's positive, we start at the top. So there's the first point. The second point is now at the node line. The third point is at the trough. The fourth point's at the node line, and then we're back up to the top, and there's a complete cycle. Now to graph this, remember everything below would be like in the shape of a U, so curve, curve. Now these are like upside down U's when you make them. Don't go like a U, go upside down U. And there's your curve. There's your cosine curve. One cycle of cosine. Same process as yesterday. Or I guess today if you did it today. So, alright, let's do a couple more. We got two more. Again, you guys could pause anytime and try it on your own because really nothing's changed. First, let's figure out the period and the phase shift. So we have 0. This is already factored for us, which is good. This is in radians because of the pi and because there's no degree symbol. Alright, so first of all, we divide by pi over 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2 over pi because you multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of something when it's a fraction. So we get 0 theta plus 3, and this is 4 and 4. That's it. So the period here is just 4 radians. This is the period again. The graph will go just for 4 radians. But we shift it, so if we subtract 3, I don't know why I changed color there. You get negative 3 theta to 1, which is still, if you look at the interval, negative 3 to 1 is still a period of 4. It's just showing you where you start and stop the graph. The amplitude is equal to 3. The node line is at y equals negative 30. So this graph's way down at the bottom of an axis. And then my crest and trough, since it's at negative 30, it goes up 3. So my crest would go up to negative 27. My trough goes down to negative 33. And now I'm ready to graph. So I have, oh, that's not the right color. I have a axis. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is 1, 0, negative. Oh, well, we don't know those points yet, actually. We don't know if those are the points we want. But it'll turn out really nicely, actually. Okay, so the midpoint between negative 3 and 1 is negative 1. The midpoint between negative 1 and 1 is 0. So here's a line, here's a line. And then the midpoint between negative 3 and negative 1 is negative 2. So this is a really nice axis for our radians. Negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1. Now, I'm going to just arbitrarily say that this is negative 27, negative 30, negative 33. That's all you have to really do. And then we can now sketch a box. There's our node line going all the way across. Goes up, across, and down, and across. And there we go. Last step, we graph it starting at negative 3. You look at the beginning. Notice how this is a negative cosine. All that means is instead of starting at the top, we start at the bottom. So I'm going to put a point here. At negative 2, we go up to the node. Negative 1, we're at the top. 0, we're back down at the node line. And 1, we're back at the bottom. Again, whenever it's below the line, think of making a U. When it's above the line, it's an upside down U. And there it is. That's your curve. One more to go. Alright. So, this one's factored out. It's another radian, but this time the phase shift will be in pi. So let's figure out what this is first. So I have 0, 6 times theta plus pi over 12. And that goes to 2 pi. So, I need to find the period first by dividing by the frequency. Again, this number tells you how many times, if we went through 2 pi, how many times the graph will happen. But we don't care about that. We care about how much we want for it to happen. We want, what is my one period? So we divide by 6 and you get pi over 3. So the period for this graph is pi over 3. Okay? So, Now we can shift it by subtracting pi over 12 for everywhere. And we get the angle is going to be between negative pi over 12 and when you subtract pi over 3 minus pi over 12, you actually get pi over 4 once you simplify and all that fun stuff. And it's best to leave it in, always leave your fractions in reduced form. So I know they're not all going to be 12ths. So the node line is going to be y equals 4. It moves up 4. The crest is at 4 and then goes up 6. So the crest is at 10. So 4 plus 6 is 10. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So let's graph this. Here's my one line. I'm going to just kind of estimate here. It's going to go here. Okay. So I have my points. We know we're going to pi over 4 and negative pi over 12. Now, if the scale doesn't work out perfectly, that's okay in terms of what it looks like. Just kind of find the points in between. So between pi over 4 and pi over 12, negative pi over 12, you have to add and then divide by 2. This is where it's a little tricky. So if you guys, again, just add the fractions, 1/4 plus negative 1/12 and divide by 2, and you get 1/12. So this will be pi over 12. If you add 1/4 and 1/12 and divide by 2, you get pi over 6. If you, well, this one you should be able to tell by looking at it, what's between negative pi over 12 and pi over 12. Hopefully you guys see 0 and you have that then there. Yeah, so my node line is at 4, so I'm going to just randomly say that 4 is here, negative 2 is here, and 10 is there. So 10, 4, negative 2. Graph the center line. And like I said, if you guys don't want to listen to me do this and you are already really good at graphing these, you can just stop the video and try it on your own and then fire it back up and look that you got it right or wrong. But it's always good to have a couple of extra examples on the video. So we're almost done. All we got to do now is graph it. We look at the function, it's cosine, and it's positive. So cosine starts at the top or bottom, and it's top because it's positive. Then we're at 0, which is here. Then we're at pi over 12 on the blue line. Then we're back up to the middle line, and then we're at the top. Again, upside down U, 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 upside down U. And there you go. That is cosine. Pretty much the same thing as sine, just how they look. We're looking at a different section of the graph where it starts either at the top or bottom of the graph. And that is all.